In July of 2020, the largest small engine company in America walked into bankruptcy court. Days before filing, Briggs and Stratton paid its top executives $5 million in retention bonuses. A few months later, a New York private equity firm bought the wreckage for $550 million. 11,000 union workers had built that company over more than 100 years. Around 300 remain. And the same thing happened to Cub Cadet, to Troy-Bilt, to Craftsman, and to nearly every other name on the riding mower aisle at your local Home Depot. Today, I'm going to show you why almost everything sold under $2,500 is engineered to die in 7 years, who actually killed the American lawn tractor, and the only 3 categories of riding mower still worth your money in 2026. Walk into any big box store in America right now and you'll see a wall of riding mowers. John Deere green, Cub Cadet yellow, Troy-Bilt red, Husqvarna orange, Craftsman, Yard Machines, Boland's, Murray. It looks like a free market. It is not. 3 corporations now control almost every brand on that wall. Stanley Black & Decker, the Connecticut tool conglomerate, paid roughly $900 million for the Craftsman name from a dying Sears in 2017. Then in December of 2021, they closed a $1.6 billion deal for the rest of MTD Products, the Ohio company that builds Cub Cadet, Troy-Bilt, Boland's, Yardman, White Outdoor, Yard Machines, and the Craftsman riding mowers themselves. On the same day, the same conglomerate closed a separate $375 million deal for Excel Industries, which builds Hustler and Big Dog. The Husqvarna Group, out of Sweden, owns Husqvarna, Poulan, Poulan Pro, Weed Eater, Jonsered, McCulloch, and built every Craftsman tractor sold by Sears for over 100 years until the contract ended in 2017. And Briggs and Stratton, the engine company that powers most of these machines, was bought out of bankruptcy in September of 2020 by a private equity firm called KPS Capital Partners, which now also owns Snapper, Simplicity, Ferris, Billy Goat, Murray, and Almond. 3 corporate parents, 1 private equity holding company. That is your free market. The Wall Street Journal does not run cover stories about it because nobody dies when a lawn tractor blows up. But if you've spent $2,000 at Lowe's in the last decade and watched your mower fall apart in 5 summers, you already know something is wrong. Here's what they did to it. To understand why your new mower is junk, you have to understand what happened to the people who used to build them. Briggs and Stratton was founded in Milwaukee in 1908. At its peak, it employed 11,000 union workers in Wisconsin alone, making the small engines that powered the American lawn. Over the next 35 years, the company opened and closed plants in Milwaukee, in Missouri, in Kentucky, in Tennessee, and in Alabama, either offshoring work or simply downsizing. In August of 2019, they announced the closure of the Murray, Kentucky engine plant, 600 jobs gone by the fall of 2020, with production consolidated to Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Then came July of 2020. Briggs filed Chapter 11. Days before the filing, the board approved $5 million in retention bonuses for top executives, while telling thousands of pensioners their retirement plans were now insolvent. KPS Capital Partners, the private equity buyer, swept in 2 months later for $550 million. In February of 2022, the company sold its iconic Wauwatosa headquarters plant for $24 million in a sale-leaseback, then began winding down lawn tractor and snow thrower production there. By 2024, another 160 workers were on the layoff list. Today, the union workforce in Milwaukee is around 300 people. The pattern at MTD Products in Valley City, Ohio is gentler but identical. Stanley Black & Decker took a 20% stake in 2019, then bought the rest in 2021. 2 years later, in the third quarter of 2023, Stanley Black & Decker booked a $124 million non-cash impairment charge against the Troy-Bilt and Irwin trade names, quietly admitting the brands were worth less than they paid for them. In the third quarter of 2025, they wrote down another $169 million across Troy-Bilt, Irwin, and Lennox. That's what the financial filings call a deprioritized brand. What it actually means is that engineering budgets get cut, components get downgraded, parts get sourced from the cheapest supplier in any given month, and the people who knew how to build these machines for decades are no longer in the building. The mower in the box at Home Depot is the end product of a corporate cost reduction program. And nowhere is that more obvious than under the seat, where they hid the single component that makes the whole machine disposable. The single most important part of any modern riding mower is the hydrostatic transaxle. It is the gearbox that turns engine power into wheel motion. On nearly every tractor sold under $2,500, that transaxle is a tough Torque K46, or its rebadged cousin, the TL200. John Deere uses it in the E100, the E110, the E120, and the S110. Cub Cadet uses it in the XT1LT42. Husqvarna uses it in the YTH18542. Troy-Bilt uses it in the Bronco. Craftsman uses it in nearly everything. The K46 has a 3/4-inch axle, and Tough Torque itself describes it as built for the basic homeowner on level ground. Not for hills, not for towing, not for anything heavy. Tough Torque's official position is that the fluid inside is lifetime fluid. The unit is, in their words, sealed and non-serviceable. On the John Deere variants, there is no drain plug at all. According to mechanics quoting Deere engineers on my tractor forum, that drain plug was removed at Deere's request to save a few dollars per unit. The result is a sealed transaxle full of 10-weight oil that gradually breaks down from heat, foams, cavities, and destroys the swash plate from the inside out. On a flat lawn, you might get 1,000 hours. On any kind of hill, mechanic forums document failures starting under 200 hours, sometimes as low as 150. When it fails, a new K46 from a Deere dealer runs about $700 for the unit alone and around $1,500 dealer installed. The mower itself is worth maybe $1,000, so the customer throws it away. That is not a bug. That is the design. Now combine that transaxle with the engine. From 2003 until roughly 2017, Kohler sold a consumer engine called the Courage to replace its legendary Command series. The Courage developed a reputation among small engine mechanics so bad that the standard joke in repair shops became, "It takes courage to own a Kohler Courage." The single-cylinder Courage cracked blocks because the crankcase cover bolts loosened under the flywheel. The twin-cylinder versions used overhead camshafts with plastic timing gears that twisted, stripped teeth, and threw lobes into the bottom end. Kohler quietly killed the line and replaced it with the 7000 series. Briggs & Stratton's parallel consumer engine, the Intech Single, has a documented head gasket failure pattern between the cylinder and the pushrod gallery, well known enough that small engine shops can diagnose it by the smell of the exhaust. Now look at the deck. John Deere's own published specifications for the E110 and the E120 confirm a 13-gauge stamped steel deck shell. Cub Cadet's spec sheet for the XT1LT42 confirms the same 13-gauge. 13-gauge is about 9/100ths of an inch thick. By comparison, John Deere's commercial 7-iron deck is 7-gauge, about 18/100ths of an inch, twice the thickness. Skag's commercial Velocity Plus deck is also fabricated from 7-gauge plate with cast iron spindle housings riding on tapered roller bearings with grease fittings on top. The cheap residential deck has sealed bearings inside stamped housings. When they fail, you don't service them. You replace the spindle. Add up the math. A 5-year-old box store mower with a failed transaxle, a leaking head gasket, and worn spindles is a $1,500 repair on a machine the dealer will tell you is worth $400. The numbers don't work. They were never supposed to. The replacement schedule is the business model. Customers have been trained to accept a 7-year lifespan as normal for a machine that 30 years ago was expected to last 40. So how do you escape the system? You buy outside of it. There are exactly 3 categories that still work. The first category is what mechanics call old iron, specifically the John Deere garden tractors built in Horicon, Wisconsin in the era before plastic became an engine part. The 318 with its Onan twin, the 322 with the Yanmar 3-cylinder gas engine, the 332, the diesel version of the same Yanmar, the 420 with another Onan twin, the 430, the diesel cousin to the 420, and the 455, the diesel flagship of the 400 series with a Yanmar 3-cylinder under the hood. These machines have cast iron front axles, hydraulic deck lift, hydraulic power steering, shaft drive, and full-pressure lubricated engines. Owners on Green Tractor Talk routinely document 2,100, 2,500, and 3,000 operating hours on these tractors, still mowing weekly, often by their second or third owners. 2,000 hours on a Yanmar diesel is considered just barely broken in. On Craigslist and Tractor House in 2026, a clean 318 with a deck runs between $1,500 and $3,000. A 420 or 430 lands between $2,000 and $4,000. A 455 diesel with a 3-point hitch is the unicorn at $5,000 to $7,000. A quick word here, because the smart viewer is already wondering, yes, the 455 does use a tough, torque transaxle, but it is the K91, not the K46 I trashed earlier. The K91 is a different animal entirely. Cast iron case, 2-pinion differential, full pressure lubrication shared with the front loader hydraulics, service plug, drain plug, separate filter. It was designed to be rebuilt indefinitely, and it gets rebuilt indefinitely. One word of warning on the 425 and 445 gas models from the same era. Pre-February 1998 units have a plastic camshaft gear in the Kawasaki engine that will eventually fail. The fix is a $400 steel cam upgrade, and many of the survivors out there have already had it done. Honorable mention also goes to the International Harvester Cub Cadets, built before April of 1981, when MTD bought the line from a collapsing IH, and to the Simplicity Sovereigns built before 2000. Cast iron, no software, owner serviceable. The second category is what's left of the still independent commercial industry, and the cleanest example is Skag. Skag Power Equipment is owned by Metalcraft of Mayville, a privately held Wisconsin manufacturer that has been stamping its own steel since 1920. Sheet metal goes in one end of the factory. Mowers come out the other. The flagship Turf Tiger 2 runs a Velocity Plus deck made from 7-gauge fabricated plate with cast iron spindles, tapered roller bearings, and top-mounted grease fittings, driven by dual 16 cubic centimeter hydro gear pumps and 18 cubic inch Parker wheel motors. In 2025 rankings on Lawnsight, Petty Hour, and across multiple commercial cutter publications, the Turf Tiger 2 has been ranked the #1 commercial zero-turn for build quality. Pricing runs about $13,000 to $18,000, depending on engine and deck. Worth a look in this category are Exmark, owned by Toro since 1997, but kept commercial only, and Ferris, the suspension specialist that survived the Briggs bankruptcy intact. The third category is the Japanese diesel angle, specifically the Kubota BX series subcompact tractors. Kubota's American manufacturing arm assembles these at Kubota Manufacturing of America in Gainesville, Georgia, with around 3,500 employees and over 3 million square feet of factory floor. The BX 1880, the BX 2380, and the BX 23S use Kubota's own 3-cylinder liquid-cooled diesel engines with cast iron blocks and full-pressure lubrication. Standard 4-wheel drive, hydrostatic transmission, all-metal hood and fenders, a drive-over mid-mount mower deck, a rear power takeoff, a Category 0 3-point hitch. The BX 2380 with a front loader and a 60-inch deck runs around $15,000 to $17,000. The BX 23S with the backhoe lands around $20,000 to $24,000. According to Kubota's own published sales data, the BX has been the best-selling subcompact tractor in America for more than 10 years running. It is, essentially, the modern answer to a 1990 John Deere 332 diesel, and it is the closest thing you can buy off a dealer lot today that will still be cutting grass in 2050. The era when an average American household could buy a quality riding mower at an average store is over. The brands that built our parents' lawns either no longer exist, or they exist as logos owned by financial holding companies whose engineers are not allowed to spend more than the spreadsheet permits. The way out is the way the smart people have always done it. Buy old iron and rebuild it. Buy a real commercial machine that was built to be repaired forever, or buy a Japanese diesel implement carrier that treats your lawn like a side quest. Skip the box store wall entirely. Check the manufacturing date. Read the spec sheet for the gauge of the steel, and never, ever underestimate a 1990 Onan or a 1995 Kohler Command. If you want more deep dives on what corporate America did to the products you grew up with, hit subscribe and stick around.